It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Chief Carroll Spriggs. He's the battalion chief at the Annapolis Fire Department for the Special Operations or the Bomb Squad unit. Lieutenant Kelly Ruth also. He's an investigator with the Fire and Explosive Service Unit of the Annapolis Fire Department. And I have Canine Rudy here, who sniffs out that bad stuff for the Annapolis Fire Department. Thank you all for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning. You're welcome.
Rudy's not talking. People know about Rudy because of the surgery he had in December of 2017. He had a injury to his leg. I think it was a tear or an ACL issue, and the surgery got a lot of attention and ended up being donated by Project Go. Chesapeake Canine Fund played a part in this, and the staff of the Veterinary Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Group. Yes?
Correct.
Tell me what was wrong with Rudy. Was I correct? A tear in his leg? Or?
Yeah, so on, as I understand it, on dogs, it's actually a CCL instead of an ACL. Okay. But yes, it was a tear in his one of his hind legs, and they do what's called TPLO surgery. And I'd be lying if I told you I knew what it stood for. But basically, they cut the bone and repair it.
Lieutenant Ruth, who's talking, is Rudy's partner. And how did all the physical therapy go?
Great. I mean, it was twice a week. They came to us. They was a wonderful group to work with. Everything went fine. He's back up and running, no issues.
That's amazing. Good news. And Rudy does look healthy, and he's chilling here in the studio. Chief Spriggs, tell me about what the work of the Special Operations Unit or the Bomb Squad or the Fire and Explosive Services Unit does.
Sure. The Annapolis Fire and Explosive Services Unit is responsible for investigating the origin and cause of all fires within the city of Annapolis. We also are responsible for responding to and rendering safe any suspicious packages or unattended packages, as well as recovering any explosives or responding to any explosive scenes where the post-blast investigation is required. So as such, we are one of 7 bomb squads certified by the FBI in the state of Maryland.
So each one of the members of your unit, canine and human, or just human, has to go to a training facility with the FBI to learn what they're doing?
Each of our human members has to attend the FBI's Hazardous Devices School in Huntsville, Alabama, which is 6 weeks. And each of our canine members has to graduate along with their human partner, has to graduate from an explosive detection canine school. And the one that we've chosen in years past has been Southern Coast Canine, which is in New Smyrna, Florida.
And how many members do you have in the unit now?
We have 4 full-time investigators and then 2 part-time. Myself and one other deputy chief are part-time members of the squad.
Now, some people might say Annapolis is such a small town. But you guys are busy, yes?
We are very busy, yes, ma'am.
And why and how is that?
Well, you have to remember that we are the capital of the state of Maryland, and so obviously there are things that come along with being the capital. For instance, a session is going on right now, so we're constantly called to investigate items around or near the State House. We also are home to the United States Naval Academy, so we support them quite a bit with military events, football games, dignitary protection, or things that occur at the academy. And we also respond to Anne Arundel County as the primary bomb squad to perform render safe operations all throughout the county.
Do you remember a time that you can talk about that it wasn't just a drill, that actually something explosive was found on a site in any of these jurisdictions?
Yeah, there's lots of times. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we do. So one of the things that we're now starting to see, and I don't know what I can put a time frame on it, is homemade explosive labs. And we've definitely seen an increase in those over the past 5 years where people are, whether they start out making drugs and then switch to making explosives, or they're just flat out making explosives. But we've had several of them within Annapolis and Anne Arundel County in the last probably 3 to 4 years.
Several of them?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a little concerning. We don't necessarily hear about some of the stuff, do we?
Well, we try and take care of them.
Yeah.
And so far, we've been successful.
And you said whether or not they started out as drug making and ended up as explosives. Is that the large majority?
I would say, lots of the chemicals that you use, if you're going to get into experimenting with making or using drugs or making drugs, lots of the chemicals are pretty close to the same. And so with the internet being out there, it's not hard to Google how to make explosives, and you'll see the same chemicals that you can buy in Walmart or in Home Depot or Radio Shack, things that you need. I don't know if Radio Shack even exists anymore. Sorry, I'm aging myself. But I
knew exactly what you meant by Radio Shack.
You can get things pretty easily, and it doesn't raise many flags. I guess it's the easiest way to put it.
All right, we're going to take a break and learn more about the work that these men and pup here are doing in the city of Annapolis and beyond. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today are Chief Carroll H. Spriggs II, Battalion Chief, Annapolis Fire Department Special Operations, Lieutenant Kelly Ruth, and his canine, Rudy. Rudy's kind of silent, so you won't hear him much. But so we're talking about this, well, I hate to use the term explosive growth in what you're finding out there in homes with explosive labs. Is any of this related to terrorism?
Sorry for the long delay.
I don't mind the long delay. And I know you have to be judicious with your words because some of it might be still under investigation.
Anytime we deal with explosives, we obviously have to consider that there is a terrorism threat. And so we typically would make notification to our federal partners. And if we think, something is terrorist related, then we obviously would have them respond with us and then coordinate our efforts.
Okay. But you can't say yes or no, yes, this was a terrorist issue in Annapolis or beyond with a home that you walked into that...
No, ma'am.
Okay. June 28th, 2018. Tell me about that, Chief Spriggs.
Obviously, that's still
raw.
It's still raw, yes, ma'am, and it's still a case that's pending trial. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, we can't discuss a lot. However, we're all aware of what occurred with the incident on Bestgate Road.
This was the Capitol Gazette.
Yes, ma'am. And our unit responded along with Anne Arundel County Police, Annapolis City Police, several other agencies. And we were some of the first people inside.
You were one of five, one of the first five.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm told. You yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you don't detect this from the chief's voice, I can tell you that it's not an easy conversation for him. And I can tell you also, because I worked with the Capitol for many years, it's not an easy conversation for me. Were any lessons learned?
I think there's always lessons that can be learned. For us or for our unit, one of the big things is communication. I think we did a really good job, but we can always improve upon that. It was just a very hectic day, a lot going on. But I think all in all the agencies really worked well together. And despite the loss of life, I think we had a pretty positive outcome compared to other jurisdictions.
Some of this stuff, much of the stuff that you first responders see and deal with is tough on you, as I'm seeing now. This was tough on you.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have nightmares?
I don't recall nightmares, but I can still see everything that happened that morning.
I'm sorry. It was a tragedy. It remains a tragedy. It shouldn't have happened. And yes, this is still an active case. What can you tell me about ongoing training within the unit? You get Lieutenant Ruth, obviously you get your initial training with the FBI. What
Correct.
Goes on throughout the year to stay up to date for both you and Rudy and the other pups?
It's pretty much a never-ending story. Fortunately, that coming into the unit, the responsibilities that you're getting ready to take. But we have to do 16 hours monthly explosive training for the FBI. And as far as the canine goes, pretty much every day it's it's good hour to 2 hour every day that you put in just to canine care, where they're most of that is training and other maintenance, feeding and grooming. And then as far as yearly goes, the FBI requires 1 to 2 weeks of training away from your home, so you have to travel
with your
1
dog?
to 2 weeks out of the year. That's not necessarily canine training. That's
Okay.
just for explosive training. They would like that training to be at a school away from your unit, so you can learn other agencies and
to the best of your ability, without giving away secrets to the bad guys and gals, what are some of these things that you do, that some of which you learn that then keeps us safe?
For instance, this Sunday I'll be leaving to go to improvised explosive school, also in Alabama. They teach us what to look for in explosive labs, keep us up to date on new homemade explosives that are out there, and then sometimes they'll teach us different ways to do investigations and different things like that. Keep current with everything. Safety's a big issue with what we do, obviously.
Yeah, heck yeah. And are all of you trained in detonating? And I know there's a robot around somewhere. I've seen the robot at work. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how does that work? Something is found. Nobody knows what it is. It has to be detonated. Who's doing that?
I guess, our rule of thumb and what we do is, and it's really no secret, is we try to use a robot whenever we can, but, I don't want to put a percentage on anything, but probably since I've been doing this, it's about a 50-50 split on when we can use the robot and when we can't. And, sometimes you just need to go hands-on. And
Is that because
we'll
of
all
the
have same
tightness of the
training.
space? Sometimes the robot can't get into a...
Yes.
Yeah,
That and there are various things that we look at when we make that decision as to whether or not to send a human, we call downrange. So like Lieutenant Ruth was saying, 50% of the time we can use a robot, but that other 50%, one of the 6 of us is getting in that green bomb suit that everyone has seen on TV, and then one of us is physically going downrange to we call render safe this device or this package.
We'll get right back into that because I can imagine the sweating involved with that kind of work. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today are Chief Spriggs, Carroll Spriggs from the Annapolis Fire Department Special Operations, and Lieutenant Kelly Ruth, also with the Annapolis Fire Department Special Operations. They're responsible for keeping us safe and secure in the city of Annapolis and beyond. They investigate all fire and explosive-related incidents in the city of Annapolis and beyond. When called for the and beyond part of that, they help out our neighboring jurisdictions. I've been in the Navy. I wasn't in this field, but I was on a base where there were a lot of explosives, and I did have to once carry a bomb onto a boat. And I got to tell you, it's you sweat. Even with all the training, do you still sweat?
Only in Alabama because it's hot.
Because it's live?
Because it's hot.
Yeah, well, that too, yeah.
I've been in emergency services since I've been 13 years old, and I'm not going to tell you that you don't think about it, but I think in what we do, it's always in the back of your mind, and it has to be. Like, honestly, when you're doing it, I don't really recall thinking about anything. Sometimes afterwards, you're like, what just happened here, or this could have happened.
The elementary school right down the street here, Mills Parole Elementary, right down the street from WNAV Studios, was the first time I ever saw a robot in action. Do you remember that?
Was that in that back ball field?
Yeah, so you remember that.
I think we both were there.
Was the robot new at that point?
We've had that particular robot may have been fairly new, but we've had a robot for years.
We got that one in 2009, and I'm not sure when we got the other one.
All right, let's talk about funding. We know Rudy's surgery. We all reported on Rudy's surgery that some of the funds aren't necessarily always available. Your funding for this program, I think, is all coming from federal grants, yeah?
Some of it, yes, ma'am.
So outside of the federal grants, do you need more? Do you need help with the canines, for instance?
Well, the canines are not inexpensive. For us to purchase a canine that's fully trained and ready to go, ready to be certified with a handler, it's around $12,000. So, they are not your typical cost for an animal. We do receive some federal grant monies for sustainment capabilities, but that's not just for the canines. That's for
everything.
Bomb suits, which are in the range of about $40,000 each, and they have to be replaced every 7 years.
Are they hot to wear?
They're heavy, and they are hot.
They're hot.
Uh-huh.
They are hot.
There's nothing like it.
The robots, obviously, we would always prefer to utilize a robot if we can, and we have robots that cost around $100,000, and we have another robot that costs probably today around $275,000.
They're not cheap.
So no, they're not cheap either.
So, okay, to get back to do you need help? It sounds like donating of canines or donating of money towards the canines, which, by the way, in this area, Chesapeake Canine Fund is helping you with. Yes,
Absolutely.
It's important.
Yes, ma'am.
The very first canine, in fact, I'm seeing was donated to your organization by the Annapolis Lions Club.
Yes, ma'am.
So for those organizations or individuals out there listening, you can donate this way or through the Chesapeake Canine Fund or directly to the fire department in whatever ways. I'm sure they would be grateful to receive another dog even.
Absolutely.
Do you need another dog at this point? How old is Rudy?
Rudy just turned 10 in December.
And what's retirement age?
We shoot for 10, but I'll be quite honest with you, in my opinion, as well as the vet and doctor that did the surgery, is he's a very in-shape dog. Like, they were actually surprised that he was 9 when he did the surgery. So my personal opinion, I'd like to squeeze at least another year out of him.
But so another dog will be in the near future with
definitely.
the Annapolis Fire
Yes,
Department.
ma'am.
Okay, again, that's Chesapeake Canine Fund that will help you with that, yes?
Absolutely.
Where do you see this going in the future? You obviously, bombs change, explosives change, guns. What are you doing stuff with guns?
All of our dogs can detect smokeless powder or black powder, which can be used in the ammunition, and so they all can search for weapons or ammunition if the weapons have been fired. So, if there's a shooting in the city and you suspect that the gun is somewhere, has been tossed in the woods or tossed alongside the roadway, all of our canines are able to go out and search and locate those items.
Is that a changing scenario with the 3D printers or different ammunition that's being used, or is that still the same?
You still have to have some sort of explosive powder to make that projectile travel. And so as long as the powders are being utilized, our dogs will detect the odor of the powder.
Okay. All right. Where do you see your industry changing in the next 5-10 years? What's next on the horizon for training?
The biggest thing going now, like Lieutenant Ruth mentioned earlier, in my opinion, are the homemade explosives. Just because the ingredients are so readily available. And so we just have to constantly train on that. Fortunately, the FBI has noticed that trend as well, and so they're providing training to all the bomb squads in that particular field. And we just have to stay on top of our game.
And the community needs to stay on top of its game by, if you see something, say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Call 911. Thank you both for doing the work that you do and for joining. Thank you, all three of you, for doing the work that you're doing and for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.